All right, and we are loaded in, Winter. We've got PepperPunch as the Infernal in the bottom left, and B as the Red Vanguard in the top right.
I've not heard of Pepper Crunch. I enjoy the name, but B, I believe if that's the B, the former, I want to say Terran player in StarCraft 2, but better known as one of the top AoE 4 players as well. So will be interesting to see. And starting off, Pepper Crunch is opting for the Infernal Wall here because no dogs allowed is the summary of this one.
I like that. I like that. Eventually, you hope that they add sprays to the workers, like, and then you can just put your little sign right at the front, just be like, no dogs allowed, right next to your wall off. Beautiful little show there, saying, I want to take the expand, don't want to get harassed. What is going on here? Okay.
Right. Well, he says, you can't stop me. I have a bob, and I'm going right through. Now, does he have anything else at home? It looks like he's just going to go for the dogs. And this is a classic strat when you have, like, destructible rocks, but in this case, destructible trees. The Fellhogs might help, but they're not going to be enough. Again, okay, well...
Well, the Fellhogs would take the bonus damage too in this case as well, right? So in a way, if they're not able to do much, then being exposed could just turn them into veterancy XP. So that's the tough part.
I guess the bright side is he didn't rally his first Infernal units the wrong way, so he didn't have to go all the way around. But
silver linings, getting a couple of picks, gets the gaunt, got a couple of imps there, retreating from a little bit of that infest damage. I guess there's not really much upside here. Committing the production to be in that location also makes it harder to send those units back into his main to defend against this.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a pretty clear and obvious counter in B, and Age of Empires 4 is a big part of early strategies is surprisingly cutting down trees just to slip around a single wall. So in this case, applying that strategy incredibly directly, and this is terrible damage.
Yeah. You've combined like the Age of Empires tree mechanic with doing like the StarCraft level cheese, and you have just this crazy amount of early pressure. The one dog almost as it looked like it was about to die to the brute, got the veterancy level up, gets that tiny boost, and manages to get away. And I mean, from here, it's got to feel like gravy. Maybe he doesn't feel like he can get out through the wall with the turret there, so probably committed at this point. But what would you say? Enough damage done here, Winter, with the dog build.
One dog is 50 Luminite. One imp is 50 Luminite, and dogs don't mind Luminite. So I'm gonna go ahead and crunch the numbers and say killing at least as many imps as he sent in dogs, with no real potential for counter damage. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, I guess the other side of it too now is that the only way for him to really leave his own base is also through the tree path that is there. So he's just gonna have to constantly be aware of that, and maybe have to redo his own plan, sending the dogs back out on the field. Do players just don't find that it's worth the time investment to try and use repair on those? Huh? Don't want to miss out on any Luminite mining.
It feels a little bit like Medivacs in StarCraft 2, where it's like you should, but nobody does. Like, it's just sometimes players will like build the sentry post, slap a bob in. That's what I like to do. That's the lazy man's repair. That way it feels like you're doing something. And he's adding the sentry post here.
Yeah, the giant repair arm. That's the best.
Oh, and dogs. These dogs are vegetarian, of course. They do enjoy the healing flowers, which are kind of scattered throughout the map. Especially this map has several of them that the dogs can just pick up.
Love to see it.
There we go.
Love to see it. So the turret is set up there. Bob is going to go inside, turns into the repaired turret. And it's a great way. It's a great way to have a little bit of that support, that reinforcement, without taking a bunch of your bobs off of mining in order to repair. And also being pointed out to us too, that natural still has not actually been secured by PepperPunch. Not actually started that base, so natural is completely done for B. And he's got to be feeling like, okay, look, maybe I lost the map control that I had from some of the units I couldn't get out towards the end, but the dogs. Like, I feel like the biggest point about this playstyle with this is that you can always choose whether the engagement is going to happen or not. So he's like, yeah, I can just kind of run past your army and just go straight for the camps while you're on your way to my base. And by the time you get to my base, I can be back here with all of my dogs to help fight with the turret.
The Saw Blade is so good against, well, pretty much everything the Infernal brings to bear in the early game, bouncing through. Fun fact, you can actually attack your own buildings and increase its range effectively because it has kind of like a leash range on it. The dogs are just eating them up. The Bobs are overcharged. There's a Lancer out just for good measure.
Yeah, the Bobs gain, what, 100 armor? 100 armor when they're overcharged? So
Battle Bobs.
That's your big defender's advantage play. But with that, without being able to get any economic damage with such a huge commitment, and now everything is still set up pretty well for him to just keep doing what he's been doing. We'll see what level of transition he wants to make out of the dogs, or if he's just gonna try and yeet these in for a huge worker kill. We'll see. That brute's putting up a lot of work holding that choke point down in the trees.
I don't know. The Gaunt out on its own, no longer out on its own. From here, it's not easy with only one shrine to really have a comeback mechanic as Infernals. So you have the top bar ability called, I think it's Hellspawn Resurgence. I've seen it called Inject, which refreshes the charges on any of your production buildings, including, most importantly, early the shrine. So you can build potentially 3 more imps if you have the money. But it's hard to come by that energy, that animus early on, because there's just not that much dying in there. Even if you're having these early fights, just the sheer number of units dying doesn't really add up that much. So even that is really hard to utilize because it's more of a mid-game option.
Good point. Good point. And just this map control has just been so well maintained by these dogs, and you talked about it, but the units that you would be fighting them with, they're mostly going to be the units that they do that bonus damage against. So he keeps that map control, able to get the camps. We also talked about how for the Infernal players, getting a bit of the Infest fiends off of those camps is a typical part of their strategy, and it helps tank for them when they're taking the other camps. So when you miss out on that first step and you can't leverage those extra fiends into anything else, it just kind of feels a little bit worse and worse. But I do like this. You mentioned the Doombringer. There is one on the field loading up several gaunts, and the crucial moment would be trying to get this undetected into the expansion of B.
Unfortunately, with those scouts on the field, the vision camp, which you can see if you're PepperPunch here, you know he has the vision camp and can skirt around the edges. It's but unfortunately, that's not what's skirting around the edges. That is the edge right there, which I believe was spotted. Not that it matters much, because at the front, the entire Vanguard army is just punching through. I don't know how much is left to defend if so many gaunts are in the Doombringer.
Good point, good point. It's not like there's any siege units that are out for him. He's had to build all of his defense by the tree line, so his production is just completely exposed. Insta dives the gaunt with the dogs, and while yes, there is a Doombringer in his third, he's just gonna abandon it. Says, okay, well, it's 2 base versus 2 base. If I give you this, he has the overcharge to try and save those Bobs, and if he cleans up this space here and now, and then it's pretty much over. There's not much left. He can't make anything. And I think that's it.
Yeah, that usually does it. With no money and no units left, he's going to be forced to tap out of the game. Unfortunately, can't float his buildings to the corner.
GG.
But the dogs just, they really chewed through the early economy.
Yeah, you could say